They Say What They Can't Radio.
Welcome to SoulShare, a conversation focused on love, intimacy, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. This is a different kind of relationship dialogue for those who want to make the shift from the ego-driven to more intimate, spirit-nurturing partnerships that satisfy. Because that's what Black love is. Black love is powerful. Black love is soulful. Black love is a love that you can feel. Give thanks. Greetings. This is Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and welcome to SoulShare. Tonight, I have with me my brother Kent.
That's right. You back in the building.
Well, you know what? It was supposed to be two other co-hosts, but I have to send out some healing energy to Fresco. He got into a car accident, so he needs some healing energy and some positive vibes. So I want all my peoples to send it out to Fresco. Get well soon, speedy recovery.
Yeah, bro. All the best to you, man. Real talk.
Well, last week, he actually brought up an interesting point, which you, Kent, said that you wanted to definitely discuss and touch on. Yeah. And you stressed that and you made a huge deal about that. So,
I mean, I wanted him to really expand on his statement, but I don't feel what he felt. That's why I wanted to have, like a healthy debate about it. I didn't want to just let him get off the hook with that statement, because I feel like the last part he added on, which was Black women included, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Like, I feel in our culture, from the beginning of time, our women have been the ones who are protecting our culture, pushing our culture forward, and making sure that everybody's good. Like the men, the kids, everybody, the elders. So that's really what I wanted to discuss with him. But, unfortunately, he's not here to, really discuss it. But I definitely feel like that last part, that Black women included, because there's always pressure from the outside. You know what I mean? Like, if he said, from other cultures or in corporate America or whatever, yeah, I feel that. As a Black man, I could respect that kind of viewpoint.
Well, you know what? Before we go any further, let me clarify, because maybe some people didn't see part one. Okay. So let me clarify what his statement was. He was saying that he felt in present times Black men are hated more across the board than back in the days, and including he felt Black women hated Black men more so, which you disagree with that, and correct. You believe that Black women are holding Black men down. And
yeah, I believe that more so. I mean, I can't even say more so now. Just throughout the history of our race, Black women have been more of our backbone than anything else. Like, that statement to me was, it was a little off, that last part. I was like, I don't know, bro. You know what I mean? Because these days, and I think also too, it could be that he feels that Black women are holding men more accountable these days. So what he interprets as hate, it might not be hate.
Right.
It might be frustration based on the fact that Black men aren't necessarily doing their part. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't say their part.
Accountability feels a lot like an attack when you're not prepared to face yourself. That's so maybe that's exactly. And I don't want to,
yeah, we can't speak for him.
Yeah,
that's the
since
thing.
He's not here.
Since he's not here. But bro, when you get back, we could chop that one up.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep with the previous conversation as far as vulnerability, and you went over as what it looks like for you. So what I really want to get into is, how are we going to inspire more men to seek therapy and seek guidance and to get more comfortable becoming vulnerable?
Well, I think black men gotta first know for themselves and go to therapy themselves. Like if you take stock of your own life and you make a decision, like, you know, I want to do better, I want to feel better, I want to help those around me. It starts with you. So once you go and you get all that past stuff out the way and all your hurts are healed and you become a whole person, I feel like going forward, you could tell your bro, like, yo, therapy ain't for crazy people necessarily. Like, because I think that's a big stigma in black communities also. Only crazy people go to therapy. But if you have a positive experience where you know what I'm saying? Like you break down all that old stuff and decompress and you get back to who you really are and then you build yourself back up and you get strong again. You could tell another brother or you could tell a family member or even a female. Like it doesn't have to be a male. You could tell everybody around you, look, if you feel like you're constantly like living in the past or you have all these negative thoughts or you feel like your self-esteem is low or things ain't really working out how they're supposed to, you might really need to talk to somebody.
But you know, you made an interesting point last week where you said you don't know until you know, because
Right.
a lot of men, because they were conditioned and trained, and society has it that this is what their idea of masculinity should be. So how would a brother know that he needs to be in therapy if the way that he is working for him? Because now it's like we're in this I mean America, because I don't want to just limit it, because like I said, in the macro society, we're in a sexist, misogynistic society, and that's America itself. But if black men benefit from being in a sexist society and being, you know, a misogynistic and that whole toxic masculinity, if they're benefiting from it, how will he know that he
That's
needs to go to therapy? Because there's no, you know, we're not trained, or men aren't socialized. There's no value in them having emotional intelligence. The value for men is, you know, to be able to be protectors, providers, and all of those other things that's deemed masculine. But there is no value in a man having emotional intelligence.
well, two things before you keep going.
Okay.
The first is I don't know if black men are benefiting from this type of society. I'd say we're surviving in it. I don't know if we're benefiting from it. Like I feel that in this society, if a black man is smart enough, he can navigate through it just enough to make sure that him and his family is good. If you're not smart enough and you get caught up in all the other traps that are set, you're just screwed anyway. So I don't think this society is conducive to any minority, any black or brown person to elevate themselves. It's not conducive to our overall health and well-being at all. So I wouldn't say benefiting, but I do see that there's certain things that we could use if we're smart enough to elevate ourselves. That's what I see. The other thing is the second part of what you said. I feel like black men do need that kind of like emotional intelligence you speak of, because we have to relate to y'all. We have to relate to our kids. We have to relate to our mothers, to our aunts, to everybody. So there is value in that for us. It's just I think a lot of times we get caught up, like you said, trying to be out there and work and provide, and we put so much of our mental focus on providing, so much of our mental focus on protecting, that we kind of lose in other areas. You know what I mean? So
But sexism almost, you know, sexism almost guarantees that he doesn't have to relate. You know, it almost lets you off the hook from actually having to
but
relate to us.
that's outside pressure. What I'm talking about is inside the home. Like, however you slice it, I still have to relate to my woman. However you look at it, for our family unit to strive and thrive, I have to relate to you, no matter what you say. I need to be
I
able
agree.
to.
I know. I totally agree. But we know and we see and we observe there's a lot of men who don't feel that they have to understand their women. They don't have to relate. They don't have to, you know what I mean? They don't have
Yeah,
to.
but I don't know if that's based on society. I think that's more personal because when you get to a certain maturity level, right? Just in life, period, you realize like, all right, I could still run around with a bunch of women if I want to, but how does that really help me at this age? Like, I'm 41. I'm not looking for like a thrill anymore. You feel me? I'm looking for like somebody I could build with because at this point, I got my finances together somewhat. You know what I mean? Like, I got my mind on the right track. So I'm looking for somebody who's gonna be able to meet me on that same wavelength so that we could do some things, so we could secure our future and lay a foundation for the next generation so that when they get to our age, they don't have to worry about certain things. So we definitely like it, it's like you're about to do some work and you need a partner. Anything you do with anybody, I don't care what it is, you have to be able to communicate to talk about what you're doing so you can do it effectively. You have to.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. However, what you're saying, I'm not sure that's the norm. Or there's a lot of people who may not necessarily feel that that's the norm because there's a lot of guys who are in their 40s, late 30s, who are still functioning at the emotional level of 17-year-olds, you know? So,
I'm sure that's right too. I
you
mean,
know,
I'm
and
not
that's
disputing
and
that.
that's what I see a lot of women complaining is that, you know, a lot of these men need to grow up. And so, you know, with that being said, how do we even bring brothers to that point where they feel like it's time that I need to mature and develop emotional maturity?
Well, two things could do that. One, I think a big problem in our communities is mentorship. I don't think we have enough older men who've lived the right way, so to speak, to speak to younger men about what they need to do, like how it needs to be done. Like a lot of times, and women as well. Women need coaching from an older woman, much like men need coaching from an older man to tell you, bro, like you just gotta relax. Like you can't be so uptight all the time. You can't be so angry all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of thing puts people off, both your wife, your kids, whoever. You know what I mean? So we need mentorship in our communities, but it's like based on a lot of stuff that happened in the 80s where the men who are needed now are either incarcerated or were incarcerated, a lot of men are just missing. They're just not there. So the men who are my age now, a lot of us don't have that mentorship from an older person to tell us, you know, bro, that's not the way. I did it the wrong way. I did this and that. I had fun. I had all these women on the side. I blew my money drinking and getting high and doing all this stuff for me selfishly. You don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like we don't have a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something that's missing for sure. That would help a lot. You know what I mean? Because like I said last week, I don't know who agreed or not, but a brother to me is more relatable to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially if I know you've been through it.
All right.
Like what people call today OGs, who they refer to in like a street way or like a drug game way, or you know what I'm saying? Like if you was in a gang and you was really giving it up back in the days, they look at that as an OG. But it's the same concept. It's like basically you already did what I'm about to do or what I'm trying to do. So you could give me advice and really hold me down so when I go in the field, I know what to do. I'm prepared. That's what an OG does.
I see. I mean, I personally love just being in the presence of elders because there's so much wisdom that you
to
gain
gain.
from them. So I mean, I can sit around and talk, you know, and just, you know, chop it up with them all night long, all day long, because they have a wealth of knowledge. But what I also notice is and I hate to, be judgmental, and I know it's gonna come across like and the millennials, they have such an unwillingness to seek guidance. That's what I see. I don't know if you see the same thing. So it's like, and even if you have elders that's trying to reach out to them and trying to offer it, they immediately reject it.
You got to be relatable.
Okay. So you think that's what it is? It's like they're not,
I know
they
that's
don't
what
know
it
how
is.
to, they don't,
Listen,
okay. Speak on it.
Black people in our culture, in our society, older people don't feel like they need to be the ones to build the bridge for the next generation. When you look at other generations, other cultures, I should say, and how they handle that generation to generation relationship, they live almost for the next generation. They don't really live for themselves. If you look at the Jewish model, even how they raise their kids is different. Like mommy and daddy have a kid, yeah, but grandma and grandpa are more involved than even they are. They're then freed up to go out there and buy a new house, buy a new building, open this restaurant, open this clothing store, so that when the kids get of age, they could take over from them. And it helps as far as maturity. Because like in our communities, we have kids young. Like my first son, I had him when I was 20. Right? When you're 20, you know nothing about parenting. Absolutely nothing. How that Jewish model helps is the grandparents being infused in the situation, they're able to help with the kids. They're more patient because they're grandparents. They already did it. They're at a point in their life where they're not so energetic and hype, and they already lived it. They've been there, done that. So now they could relate to the kids and take care of them. And when you come in now, your kids are just happy to see you, but they've already been fed. They've already been given a bath. They already did their homework. So now your time with the kids now is going to be more relaxed, more enjoyable for both sides of it. And I also feel like in our society, older people, I'll even say me included, because I'm learning from like my younger cousins. You need to be relatable. You can't come from that just do what I say kind of mentality, like how we grew up. They don't respond to that well because it's a different time.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like you got to relate to them and talk to them as people. Like they are people. You feel me? Like you got to talk to them like how you would talk to a friend. But I think especially in Caribbean households, there's like a gap that parents call respect.
Right.
Like if you grew up Caribbean at all, you know exactly what I mean. Like they want this respect where they can disrespect you or treat you poorly, and you got to eat that.
Yeah,
You
because
feel me?
because they use fear-based tactics,
Yeah, like there's no actual relationship. But then when they get older and you grow up now, they wonder why y'all don't have a relationship because you bullied me, homie. Like what else? What
Yeah,
else is there to
and
it?
I agree. And I did a show on bullying and humiliation, and I said sometimes parents are the child's first bullies, and
That's a fact.
and I'm against spanking and beating, and because I think that is a form of bullying. But
not. I think especially young boys, like I'm just telling you based on the friends I had and how I grew up, some little dudes need to get smacked because we don't understand any other way. You could tell a young girl, if you touch these headphones, you're gonna get burnt. And a young lady will literally look at them, like, okay, I believe you. A boy? Listen, man, we gonna touch that with both hands like this. I wanna see how hot it is. Oh God. And burn yourself. Because that's how we learn. So what you gotta do is when they do that, you gotta smack fire out of them too. So they get burnt here and here. I'm just telling you, man.
yeah,
Boys,
but I don't agree.
we learn
Once they
different,
get
man.
burned, they already learned
Nah.
the lesson. You just leave them. See,
Nah, boys.
that
is
was
different.
hot, wasn't it? You don't have to beat them on top of that. See, that was hot, wasn't it?
Nah,
Make them touch it again.
Because a boy will touch it again, but like put like mitts on this thing. Because that's just how we built. Like we just different. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to get off topic. But that's just really
because we are kind of digressing.
Yeah.
But so now you still haven't said how do we get these brothers
Mentorship. That was one.
Okay,
I started to
mentorship.
answer you. Yeah, we're lacking that. That's something that my generation
So
We have to install that.
who's gonna be the mentors? If the generation before, like you said, the high incarceration rates, who's gonna be the mentor? Who's gonna lead them, to that?
That's what I'm saying. My age group, and I mean, I'm 41, but I'd say anyone like 45, anywhere between like 40 and 50, you could say. We're the ones who, based on how we grew up, because my generation grew up kind of rough. So it's not necessarily an age thing at this point, but you got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? You can't just leave it and say, "Oh, who's going to do it? I'm not going to do it." Somebody got to do it.
Because doing this work, and I'm 45. There's a lot of people my age, your age, they are just so dead set against the whole entire therapy, and no matter how much
Against
you
therapy?
try, yeah, against therapy, against seeking guidance, and even acknowledging that they have some level of trauma, and when you want to talk to them, they shy away from that.
That was your other question that I
Right, they
didn't
shy
answer.
away from that conversation altogether.
Right. You asked me, how would you know if you need therapy if you just don't know? Right? And my answer to that is, how do you feel? How do you feel? Do you feel healthy?
Indeed.
If you feel healthy and you feel good and mentally you're fine, then okay, maybe you don't.
But a lot of men aren't emotionally honest, and as a woman who tries to connect, to my partners, to the men that's in my life, and asking them, you all right? You good? I'm good. I'm good. That's the standard answer. I'm good.
Yeah,
Always.
but that's the answer to you. What I'm talking about is the answer to yourself. So if you're still at a point where you're lying to yourself, you're probably never going to go to therapy anyway, right? So I'm talking about the guy who literally can be introspective and say, "Damn, yo, like when I find myself like on my lunch break or whatever, I'm sitting there thinking about something from the past and like dwelling on it, and it's getting like an emotional reaction from me, like in my own brain, like, you know, I'm thinking about this past hurt or whatever, or thinking about this female, my ex, or thinking about how I grew up as a kid, and it's making you upset." That's a sign you might need to sit down and talk to somebody.
So that's how.
So like if you, I mean, you just have to know yourself and really ask yourself some tough questions. Like, how do you really feel? If you feel like you're trying a lot of things in life and none of it seems to be working and it feels like life is beating you down, there's reasons for that. And I'm not saying that might not be the case. Like, life really might be beating you down.
Yeah.
But
We all know that not just men, but we're focusing on the men, when they have those conversations with themselves in those quiet moments on their breaks, or when they're in the bathroom, on the toilet, or whatever, those little quiet moments that they get, the first thing that they do is, instead of saying, okay, I need to talk to someone, they may spark. You understand what I'm saying? Or they may pour that drink, or they may call that girl over and say,
Right.
just to distract them. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
yeah,
it's
but
just
what I'm
like,
saying is there's only so much of that you're gonna do. Because everything has its limits. So after you done drank 50 bottles of Henny, after you done smoked like 1,000 spliffs, you're still gonna have to deal with yourself. Like, that's the thing about life. Like, in my experience, life brings you the same thing, sometimes in different ways, repeatedly till you can master it.
that's right. That's
So
right.
it'll be Tanya today. It might be Maxine 2 years from now. But whatever the names are, the people or the thing, it's going to continually just keep hitting you. And then literally, what I found out is literally, like, the moment you master it, it never comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what life is about. It's like you won't graduate to the next level until you master the level that you're on now.
Right.
But we see that there's so many people that perpetuate the same cycles over and over and over again, and they just get stuck. That's what arrested development is. They get stuck at a particular place, and they never get out of that cycle. So I'm just, sometimes it's very painful to sit there, especially when you have so many, brothers that you love and that you care about, and then you watch them struggle, and you watch them going through their challenges, and you want to reach out and you want to connect to them. And as a woman, it's just like, what can I do that's going to connect and make that thing just resonate with him, so that it's just like, okay, I'm here for you. I'm walking this journey with you. Just trust me.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. I think it's like anything else, any other like addiction or hardship, the person has to come to the realization 1st for themselves. And then once you see like, whoa, I really have a problem, then someone who they trust can help them along. But until they actually realize for themselves, like, listen, I got a serious issue that not only do I have an issue, but it's been bothering me for a long time and it's been kind of stifling my progress. That's like it's like drug addicts when you hear they got to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing. Like you have to recognize for yourself, like, I'm not okay. I need help. And sometimes even at that moment, you don't know what to do. But then that's where somebody like you comes in and will tell you like, well, you could, go this path and seek this help and whatever, and it could be beneficial. Then you take the next step and, so on
Yeah,
and so
because
forth.
one of the things that you were saying is like when you're sitting there in those quiet moments and your mind is racing, like people don't even realize that mind racing is a symptom of anxiety. When you can't be in the moment and you can't be present and you're stuck and you're thinking about things in the past or you're thinking about things in the future and you're struggling to be in the moment, that is where anxiety and a lot of us, we suffering from that anxieties. We have PTSD. Well, I don't want to say PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because a lot of the stuff is not post anything, because it's constantly,
It's going,
ongoing.
yeah.
It's ongoing, as black men, living in a racist society. And, just like what Fresco was saying, the fact that he feels that, that they're hated now more than ever. So it's not post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right, it's current.
Yeah, it's current. It's perpetual. So now, because our brothers are suffering from anxiety and PTSD, perpetual, stress disorder, and it's just and trauma. I think that we need to have these conversations so that they can understand that when their mind is constantly racing, when they're feeling that all is not well, that something needs to be done, and they're not alone. Yeah,
I think thinking about the past brings on more of a depression than anxiety. I think thinking about where you're going or where you want to go brings the anxiety because you're like trying to connect the dots in front of you. So that's where the anxiety comes from. But anything from the past, I think, is more like depression. Like because when you think about it, it's like it brings you down. It brings you to a different level where you're like,
but that's true. And so now you can have both depression and anxiety
yeah,
simultaneously. And when you think about it, those are very opposite things, because depressions bring you down, anxiety, gets you kind of anxious and flustered. So now you have two opposing, things going on, and that's a real struggle. Sometimes this is why a lot of us, we tend to get misdiagnosed, because what it looks like in us versus them looks completely and totally different. So then now they want to put us on all types of medications and pills that's not necessarily for us. So that's why I think that it's so important that we have these healing circles, and that men, talk with other men, and or if they're more comfortable talking or speaking with women, that they speak to women or whoever they're comfortable with, so that they're not dependent on the medications that they're trying to give to us all the time. Because the side effects from those medications, and I've had my experience with them, and I wasn't feeling it, because I suffered from depression, and I still, let me not say suffered, I suffer from depression, and I've been dealing with depression since I was 16 years old, and had a therapist since then. More recently, anxieties and panic attacks and stuff, and the things that they try to prescribe me, and this, I ain't with that. You know what I mean? So now it's more about having the support system. It's about, reaching out and doing, different types of things for healing, so that I'm not dependent on that. And we see that out there, the struggles that a lot of our Black men are having and being diagnosed as bipolar. More recently we're seeing some of these celebrities, and even money doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't absolve you from having all of these issues. We see people out there like, who was it, Delonte West. We see what Orlando Brown and what their struggles and what they're going through.
Even
And
AB.
yeah, Antonio Brown,
Tripping right now.
yeah, and
He
it's,
got bread.
yeah.
So
And
money
they
ain't the
have
answer.
access, right? They have access to, to the best type of treatment. So, for us, we're access to mental health care is so limited. And if people who have the money, so that puts them and gives them greater access, if they're still struggling, what does that say for us, that we have to find alternative methods?
Man, that's what Big said. More money, more problems, man. Like the more money you have, it boosts everything around you. So if normally you and your boy would smoke 2 blunts a day, you got bread, y'all are buying like a pound of weed, and you invite all your homies. So now you don't just have a little weed problem, you got a big weed problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, same thing with drinking, same thing with everything. Like, if your problem is you mess around, like you got a wifey and you messing around, when you got bread, you messing around in every city now that your team goes to. Like, it's just, it elevates everything. So it's kind of actually more dangerous when you have money, because you could be more detrimental to yourself with more money than somebody who's broke, So it's actually worse, but I don't know, man. Them brothers, they gotta get it together, man. Some of them need somebody to reach down and grab them and pull them up and say, yo, bro, I know you're having a rough time, but we're here for you. And others need to look within themselves and say, I'm tripping.
When was the last time you told another Black man that you love them and that you here for them?
All the time. I got family, like, that I love, man. Everybody in my family. Every time we talk, that's how it be. And even if we don't say I love you all the time, I know for sure our family say I love you more than most families. But even when we don't, everybody feel that love. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody. Tim, Brian, Cam, Dro, name it. Everybody. And if I'm lying, y'all can hit the show and let them know I'm lying. But
that's
family,
that's your blood. I'm talking about your brethrens and your homies.
My family is my brethren. But I see where you coming from.
Yeah.
Some of my dudes, it depends on how we rock. Like, if you my real brother, even though we not related, yeah, I've told like friends of mine I love them, especially in certain times. It's not a regular thing, like every time we talk, every time I see them, but definitely, like, it's there. And that's another thing too. I think that whole perception from being a young Black man, like, yo, you gotta be hardcore all the time. I'm like, yo, listen, man. It's like the I seen a meme about it on the gram. Dudes be fronting like every once in a while you don't listen to like Whitney Houston or Luther or something. You not thugging it all day, every day, bro. Like, let's stop playing.
But, of course. But I mean,
Listen,
most men that
man.
I know, they love people like Anita Baker. They love all that good stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Like, dudes front like that, but they in the shower, you know what I'm saying, singing like some R&B. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, speaking
you're
of
not
R&B
thugging
tracks,
it all
it's
the time.
about to hit up, some R&B, Thursdays and shit like that. But But we were talking about that last week, and I brought that up, where there's 80s R&B was the epitome of Black male vulnerability. So Y'all are listening to all of that because y'all black men do feel, and I know that because I'm 45 years old and I know what a brother who has feelings look like. All of y'all are not savages, no matter how hard y'all try to front and want to act like y'all bunch of savages and y'all,
Women too,
profess.
though. Women been talking that savage talk for the last few years too. So don't,
Yeah,
you gotta
that's
include that.
true too, and that
Yeah.
annoys me. It's like I don't care how you profess to be a savage, male or female, man or woman. That's not gonna fix your broken heart. That's not gonna fix that hole in your heart. Claiming to be a savage, nobody's impressed by that. So,
But on the music tip, and we discussed this off air before as well. I took the time to watch that R. Kelly documentary. I watched that one, and I watched the Aaron Hernandez one. And our generation of music isn't like that. I'm in love. Let me express my love, like in the '70s or even the '80s. Our R&B is like an R. Kelly. And the funniest thing, listen, man, I got every R. Kelly album, right? Was listening to R. Kelly.
unfortunately, how unfortunate.
It is what
I've
it is.
never been an R. Kelly fan.
That's fine. I mean, Kel's music, like on another show, whether you like him or not, he's everywhere in black culture. Even if it's just a step in the name of love at a wedding or whatever. Like, his music is everywhere in our communities, right? But the funniest thing happened after I watched that documentary. Like, I started listening to like songs that I used to really rock out to. And I actually listened to the lyrics and I was like, yo, this dude is sick. My man said, my mind is telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. I don't want to hurt nobody, but there's something that I must confess. Like that's how he started the song that I swear to you, Kimmy, I've been listening to that song for ages. But since I watched the documentary, now I'm looking at it like, yo, this dude was really talking about how he felt in that moment with an underage girl.
But why wasn't you thinking about that when the videotape dropped in 2002?
Because when the
why
song
wasn't you
came
thinking
out,
about that?
when the song came out, it just was like a sexy song. Like, it's something that you play. You know what I'm saying?
It wasn't. His songs wasn't sexy.
To
His
you,
songs was
to you-
graphic, and they were
Hold
just
on.
like gross.
Oh my God! Listen, man, listen. I'm telling you what I felt and what other people I know felt. Do you know how many kids was made to R. Kelly music? Like, for real? I'm not telling you something I think. I'm telling you what I know. And I'm not saying it's right.
I'm not. I don't disagree with you, but
All I'm
you know what I mean.
saying
That's
is-
not. I mean, R. Kelly's not what I'm choosing
Yeah,
to.
we
To
got that. We got that. We
it's
understand
just
that. I'm just saying, for me as a person now who used to be a real R. Kelly fan, it's just like amazing to me to hear his lyrics in a different light, knowing what was actually going on. And I had to be responsible enough within myself. Because even this whole time, when I heard about this documentary that I never watched until like last week, when I was hearing people talking about like mute R. Kelly, that was a whole movement, and different people saying they're not listening to R. Kelly no more, I'm just saying to myself, why are people coming down on him so hard when chances are, if you look at any and every other musician or singer or artist, they're just as messed up, but in a different way, because artists are screwed up. I was thinking to myself, why can't people for Kells separate the music from the man? That's what I thought before I saw the documentary. But then after I saw it, I was like, damn, bro, this dude was really an animal.
And then, but see, and that's another thing. And I get the whole separate the music, and the the deeds from the man and the artist. But why no one talks about the girls and what happened with the girl? Why don't no one care about that? I mean, I see when they talk about like what's going on with Weinstein, like, oh, well, if you're going after Cosby and if you're going after R. Kelly, go after Weinstein. It's just like, why do you require or why are you begging for fairness to a predator and a rapist? Why? Why do you think that they deserve fairness and, and equality across the board? No one's talking about the little girls that he affected, whose lives that he's ruined, who are so traumatized now that they're going to have to spend the rest of their lives rebuilding. Everybody's just sitting up here just worried about, R. Kelly is not being treated as fairly as Weinstein or Epstein or this one. Who cares? They're freaking predators. They're monsters. There's animals. Fuck giving them fairness.
I agree, but I can understand where it comes from. Where it comes from is the criminal justice system has never been fair to black people. Period. So what they're saying, if you could kind of like table the type of crime that R. Kelly did, right? Let's just say it's stealing, right? There are people that come across my timeline on Instagram, Facebook, everything, where a black man in 1980 got arrested for stealing $200 out of a cash register, and he's still in prison right now. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, as you look at celebrities who do like all kinds of, like college entry, like scams and all that kind of stuff, those kind of crimes, they'll literally go to a country club prison for a week, and then they're out and everything is normal. Now, what I'm saying is, if you balance it out and you look at it, we're treated way more unfairly.
There's no disputing that.
And I think that's where it comes from. That's what I think.
Well, but you know what? Even though there's no disputing that, I think that when you have to look at the crime. So now for there to be any level of sympathy, then you have to align yourself with that particular person. So for these people to really be caping for R. Kelly, caping for Cosby, is because they align themselves with those particular men. Because there's women who I will never align myself with. So if anything comes to light about them, I'm not caping for them because I don't align myself with them.
You know what's the funny thing though? In that same argument where you're talking about why are people trying to, like, basically, like, they're not giving the same kind of credence to like a Weinstein or R. Kelly, the majority of the fans of R. Kelly who are saying this are women.
Exactly. That's awful.
That's the scariest
awful.
part about your argument.
That's awful.
It's not even like it's men who are saying like, like basically we should be equally allowed to rape. It's women who are saying that. Like,
but there are women who are gatekeepers of sexism and misogyny. There are women who are gatekeepers of that.
It's a fact.
And that's because of the society that we live in, and we have so much to, unravel. And I'm seeing now you mentioned the Aaron Hernandez documentary, and I'm seeing more people watching it. And there's a lot of people who's feeling really sympathetic because they're just like, well, why aren't people, focusing on the CTE and the fact that he was doing all of these things because he has CTE. So they feel that the documentary was kind of slanted because it didn't highlight that his behavior was as a result of the CTE. So then we should be more sympathetic and not view him as a monster. Similarly to people thinking that, okay, we shouldn't view R. Kelly as a monster because, he was molested as a youth, but these people still have victims, right. And it's like everybody's trying to find some loophole to, to garner sympathy from.
How do you heal that?
How do I heal what? The
entire situation. How do you rehab? Because right now there are R. Kelly-like males in our society and females that are from our communities. They're from our culture. They exist. How do you heal them and their victims? Like, what's the strategy?
Well, starting with the conversation now, because of course we all know that, like, there's 64,000 missing Black women right now. We know that there is a sex trafficking epidemic, and our young girls are getting caught up in that. We saw, when Sonny Alloway try to kidnap the girl on the train. We saw that, so we see that these things is happening in our community. I mean, East New York, which I live in East New York, is one of the biggest
I
where
get
a
it.
lot of that happens.
But that's not my question.
Bronx.
My
And
question
your
is, how do
question
you
is
heal it? How do you heal it?
But we have to acknowledge that there's an issue first, and now the men have to heal and the women have to heal as well. So now I don't know. I don't have all the answers. So that's why these conversations are very, very necessary, because we need to start making that step forward towards healing, so that we can try to get, we can try, so we can stop all of this, where the men are taking advantage of the women, where men are feeling that our women are hating them. Like, we have to get to
Bro, you got to come back and defend that
you know
statement,
it's
because
like
she that's like the third time she brought it up.
whatever, but we have to figure it out, and we have to
That's a
have
fact.
real conversations, and we have to get to the meat of all of this. So what do you think is the way that we can start healing all of these things?
Well, from the predatory aspect, I think that's something that exists anyway. It's like albinos in nature, right? Like, you can't really explain them. They just happen, but it's the effect, right? So if we can protect our kids, like as parents, sometimes we got to do a better job of not letting your kids sleep over so and so's house, because what you would allow or not allow in your house might not necessarily be the same in his friend's house or her friend's house. Because back in the day, it was for your daughter, somebody would violate her, but these days they're violating boys too. So I think it starts from a protection aspect. If you could have, I don't want to call it a crop, but it would be more like a generation of kids.
But clearly, it's not nowadays that they're just violate. Our men have been. RKelly was violated.
That's
And
what
there's a lot.
No,
And
but
there's a lot
that's
of.
the
There's a
answer.
lot
What
of
I'm
men.
saying is, if he was protected, because if in the same documentary, it basically touched on the fact that his mother was, I don't want to call her an addict, but she had some kind of substance issues. So she got these 3 boys and I think 2 girls, if I remember. But it was definitely 3 boys. But what I'm saying is, they were basically able to just do whatever. Like, there was no supervision. So maybe in that instance, if he was more protected and supervised on a day-to-day basis, and he made it out of childhood without being victimized, it's possible he wouldn't be a predator himself. Because what I see, and I see it on both sides, men and women, like when a man is violated, it's actually a similar result as when a woman's violated. Like, both men and women, they themselves turn into like some kind of predator, or they have predatory behavior towards whoever did it to them. And my thing is, I don't know how else to heal it other than like stopping it before it starts the cycle.
So how about, because like you said, the men who are violated then turn around and violate.
Correct.
The same thing that happened to RKelly. There's a lot of men, because I've been in conversations with plenty of men where they brag, and which was also stated in the RKelly documentary, about losing their virginities at ages even under 10 years old, whether by the babysitter or by this one or by that one on the schoolyard. And it's just like, where are you losing your virginity at 8 years old? Where are you losing your virginity at 9 years old? Like, you were molested. You didn't lose your virginity.
Correct.
You were molested.
And what I'm saying is that needs to stop, because if you could stop the process before it starts, there's a higher likelihood that it won't happen later on, where they become the predator.
So why are we still bragging? Why are men still bragging about that?
I can't answer that. I don't know. Like, it's just a thing. Men brag about a pair of Jordans. I don't know. Men brag about anything. Like, some men are just like, that's where they're at in their mental. Like, their maturity isn't really there
So
yet.
if you're still bragging about losing your virginity at 8 years old, then clearly you're not gonna understand, or you don't realize that you have a
Clearly
problem.
you don't understand now. If that's your statement, and you don't realize that you were actually a victim at that moment, where like you didn't win, you actually took an L in that moment, then clearly that's where the problem is. Like, they're not mature enough to understand what occurred. So again, what I'm trying to get across is I believe if you could, like, in a way, prevent the cycle from starting, because it's a self-perpetuating cycle, how it looks to me. And I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything, but it just seems to me like once something like that happens, it's hard to stop it afterwards.
Right, right.
So the key would be to try to limit that by being present in the home, making sure that your kids are good so that they don't go through that, so that they themselves don't put others through that.
And I agree with you on that level, but for you for a parent to be able to prevent their child from doing that, that parent has to also recognize that this is what they need to do. So if the parent themselves haven't addressed the fact that they were victimized and they don't understand that they themselves were victimized because it's been so normalized, then how are they going to protect their children from it? So what I'm saying is we need to address our generation who still is viewing that as bragworthy, so that they can now protect their children and grandchildren, from that level of
that's
abuse.
an education thing, and that can happen. You know what I mean? Like that can, I wouldn't say easily, but I think conceptually, a person speaking to a person who's that way mentally, you can get across to them like, bro, like that's not normal. It's not okay. And what you're looking at as basically I was young and got some ass actually isn't that. You actually were like preyed upon by an older person.
Right.
And they need to understand that. And then once they know, it's a different thing. You know what I mean? But a lot of people don't know.
And the not knowing is what is causing so much difficulties in how men and women are relating to each other. So if you don't address that trauma, then you're not going to be able to connect to women. Then we're going to have serious intimacy problems. So that's what all of this is about, so that we can start to unravel all of these things so that we can connect to each other better. Right. We have a serious issue with intimacy with each other because we have so much trauma that is unaddressed, and it's unaddressed because we don't even acknowledge or we don't even recognize that it is trauma. So now, instead of, sitting around with the locker room talking, bragging about losing your virginity at 8 years old, when is that brother going to say to the bruh, I think you should talk to somebody about that because you were molested, as opposed to just turning a blind eye to that.
I don't know if that's where it's going to happen, because like you said, I mean, I don't expect to gain healing at a bar. I mean, for me, again, you have to have people in your life, because certain situations where guys talk, much like women do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, y'all sit around and talk about men and who did this better than the other. It's the same thing. And it's a bragging thing. But what I'm saying is, I don't expect in that environment is where you're going to get some kind of healing or some kind of word to encourage you to seek help. I think you still need the people around you who are around you all the time, whether it's uncles, parents, friends, whoever. Those are the people, when you let them know what happened in a more intimate situation, like whether it's a one-on-one, you and your boy just watching a game, then you could have a conversation, because it's different from 8 people being in a room talking, and then you come with this heavy statement.
Well, that conversation is not going to happen halftime at the Super Bowl. Oh, let's talk about your trauma when you was 8 years old.
That's what I'm trying to say. But if you and a person is watching a game in the crib, you know what I mean? Like, y'all might both be like, I'm a Jet fan. And, my boy might pull up. We watch the Jet game. And if he says something, I'm better able to address it on a one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to put him out there in front of like a room full of people. You know what I'm saying? So that's it. I don't know, man. We got a lot of work to do.
I agree. So when are you going to get this healing circle started for brothers?
You putting a lot of pressure on the kids.
Absolutely.
Like, I ain't never
Accountability.
I ain't never said I'm starting a healing circle, but what I will say is I'm willing to help in any way I can. I might not be the one spearheading it, but I'm definitely willing to pull up and lend a hand. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here right now. So
Yeah.
you already know.
And I think that's where it starts. Just letting people know that you're open and that I got you. If you need me, I got you. That's it. That's all you have to say. If you need me, I got you. And that's all anybody wants to hear.
Facts.
Well, this was a really, really good conversation. We brought it to the camera, and normally we have these conversations all the time.
Right.
And I thank you for joining me, Mr. Harvey.
No doubt.
So, I am Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and I am signing out from SoulShare. Thank you.